didn't do it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't do it, guys. I didn't do it.
Basically, there's been some allegations going around that I'm a pedophile and a predator, and that I've done some inappropriate things to younger girls. Well, I just want to let you all know that is not true.
May seem weird to say, but I kind of have a macro-micro fetish.
Love you so much, my Glim Glam. I love you. Love you.
What if you were told that one of the internet's strangest lolcos isn't just an awkward My Little Pony fan?
He really wants you to take back your smash on Coco Pomelo.
Oh, come on, she's hot!
But an adult grown man wanting a young pony in his lap, who asked him to replace his ex-toy with a young pony.
Oh, what do you know? It's a mistletoe.
Uh-huh. Now kiss me, you big doofus.
And even allegedly asked an artist to edit him in a young pony having X. Can you draw me an apple bloom having X? This is the story of Brandon, who wants every Equestria horse girl to be obsessed with him. He's been accused of attempting erotic roleplay with a 15-year-old. 15. Almost 16. Installing Discord now. Are you okay with NSFW? Don't worry, it is only voice acting. However, you will not be paid for the voice acting. You will earn new friends from it. He shamelessly sent out threats to his critics' parents.
EUF lover and harassing people on Twitch and Twitter and DeviantArt. That was done by Solar Moon Clips, who was out to frame me further.
And once proudly said he wouldn't date black women. Despite this, his fans have donated roughly $10,000 to fund his projects, letting him live out extremely disturbing pony fantasies online, from alleged fetish content involving giant ponies, to having more than one account linked back to him. The deeper you look, the darker it gets. He built an online following around fantasy, obsession, and attention, all while serious allegations kept lining up behind the scenes. This documentary is about unchecked behavior, and how such unchecked behavior on the internet can target your children.
Not racist, I promise you. I promise you I am not racist.
Surprisingly, Brandon the Brony Pony is more than one thing. He's multi-talented. He's an actor, voice actor, singer, digital artist, 3D artist, animator, musician, and also a director.
I am actually doing a My Little Pony real life series, My Little Pony Dimensional Dilemma.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's gonna... There might be a certain bug queen featured in that.
Thing out of my bag real quick. Okay. Starlight, will you marry me?
Yes, of course. Thank you.
And when it comes to being an all-rounder, Brandon doesn't disappoint in being an absolute creep. He once sent out a disturbing message in his Discord server, referring to one of his female members.
Love you so much, my Glim Glam. I love you. Love you. Alright, that's enough.
It all started when a female member changed her Discord username to Buttcrack. Now, a normal adult would ignore it, shut it down, or at least act like a grown-up. But Brandon, of course, chose none of those options. And Brandon dared to cross all boundaries. He decided it was a great idea to post a sensitive comment like, "I lick a girl's at butthole," clearly trying to be funny or edgy. But it ended up backfiring on him, thanks to the girl's ex-partner that she was 17 years old at the time, and screenshots of Brandon's message quickly made the rounds online. And as expected, Brandon was rightfully accused of being a pedophile. So he sent this message to my ex. Now for context, my GFAM in the server was Buttcrack, as a joke. So out of nowhere he decided to say this. Now at the time my ex was 17. After this disturbing act, the 17-year-old member was forced to change her username to Fluttershy. And if you think that was a one-time mistake, think again. Brandon was once a member of a Discord server that was full of and teenagers. The rules clearly stated that only 13 plus appropriate content was allowed. But did that stop him? Of course not. Brandon proudly shared an NSFW video on the very server. Philic video. The result was immediate and predictable. Instant ban. Someone named NixMoonVA shared a post related to this situation on Twitter. We actually had this guy in some of our servers and we had to ban him because he posted an NSFW video in a server full of...
I know, Jokey hates my guts.
Jokey?
Yeah, she hates my guts.
Who's that?
She was one of the 4chaner fans of me, and I unintentionally made her uncomfortable.
Nonetheless, he shamelessly reached out to the server owner named The Unwanted Soul, who was a herself, and asked her why he had been banned. The owner explained very clearly that Brandon had been acting creepily toward members of the server. According to the owner, Brandon had been virtually cuddling the members, or sometimes begging them to cuddle with him. However, instead of reflecting or apologizing, Brandon pulled out the classic excuse. He claimed he had no idea the server or its members were Banning people after one strike is irresponsible. That's not how you run a server. People complaining about you being creepy toward them and always cuddling people and begging to cuddle them, the video and what you are saying is completely inappropriate, right? Because somehow he missed the ages, missed the vibes, and most importantly, missed the rules that are literally posted for every new member to read. Totally believable.
Which I've done to a lot of people, and because I said her sunset voice was hot and made her uncomfortable. Now she's one of my haters.
And before we go further into the story, I need a small favor from you. I've started posting these deep dives on Spotify as well, so if you prefer listening instead of watching, or you just want to support me, make sure to follow me there. The link to my Spotify is in the description. And this is where things start to paint a bigger picture. One of the most damning patterns surrounding Brandon is the constant stream of accusations about his behavior toward. These claims didn't come from just one person. They came from multiple people over time, and some were backed up with proof.
So that was made by First Zack Attack, and he made that for me as a gift.
But before digging deeper into that mess, it's worth looking at his other controversies, because Brandon doesn't limit himself to just one type of bad behavior. He isn't only a pedophile, but Brandon has also been exposed for racist behavior.
But no, you're the Brony Pony, right?
Yeah, I'm the Brony Pony.
Leaked DMs from 2018, shared by a female voice actor named Wubcake, revealed some truly unhinged stuff about Brandon. Wubcake has 41.4 thousand subscribers on YouTube. She also has a long history of being pulled into internet drama. At one point, she shared private messages from Brandon. In those messages, Brandon openly talked about race and dating. The way he spoke made his personal biases painfully obvious.
And topic such as cringe in this fandom. People were speaking out about their experiences with Brandon, claiming that he was a racist, claiming that he was a bit weird with.
In the DMs, Brandon said that he wouldn't date a black woman because the white race is being getting rid of. Then he went on a bizarre rant about wanting to have white children to preserve the race, as if he were someone responsible for protecting races. The entire message sent by Brandon was absurd, but at the same time highly biased.
And there's actual evidence to back these claims up. Somebody known under the name Wubcake, a voice actress and just general talent here on YouTube, posted screenshots of a conversation that supposedly took place about 3 years ago, where Brandon laid out all of his cards in his beliefs on race. He stated that he would not date a woman of color because people are trying to eradicate the white race.
And when people called him out for it, Brandon didn't take responsibility. He straight up blamed his cousin for saying this to him. I want to create a white kid, so that there will still be some of the white race left. What you just said is incredibly racist. Nope, it's the truth. My cousin said it.
I'm crazy about bronies. You should become a brony. You can get a girl like this.
Maybe I should be Pinkie Pie.
There you go. Here, you can hold like this. Yay!
You know you can do Q&A right now.
And the next accusation didn't come from Wubcake at all. This time it came from a Twitter user known as Kevin the Brony Fan. Kevin claimed that Brandon had tried to erotic roleplay with two of Kevin's friends. According to Kevin, Brandon had a habit of trash-talking people whenever they backed out of working on his projects. This guy's a creepy-ass dude. I have a couple of friends he tried to roleplay with, and they're both under 18. I've also interacted with him on several occasions. Always about people dropping out of projects. And this is where it all gets truly unsettling. Brandon even allegedly asked to pay an artist to draw Brandon or an Apple Bloom a pony having. Disturbingly, Apple Bloom Pony is intended to be a very young female pony, aged between 7 to 11 in the My Little Pony world.
Well, you can't please everyone. You can't please everyone. All right. I think that's a stallion, so pass.
Okay.
Autumn Gem.
Okay. I'd say she's a smash.
All right.
For context, My Little Pony is a very well-known toy line as well as a media franchise. It includes TV shows, movies, and toys, mostly aimed at young girls and focused on colorful, magical horses. That said, the fandom isn't limited to kids. The adult women who are fascinated with MLP are called Pegasisters, while male fans are called Bronies. Brandon is one of the Bronies, infamous for all the wrong reasons.
A Brony is a male fan of My Little Pony. And yes, that's a thing. So today I'm going to a My Little Pony convention to see what makes Bronies tick. And what you see.
Luckily, the screenshot of Brandon's response to that artist's post was shared on Kiwi Farms. In the picture, the artist announced that they were ready to take commissions. In response, Brandon replied with a request that immediately raised red flags. Commissions are finally open. Can you draw me an Apple Bloom having. According to the screenshot, Brandon wanted to see himself being intimate with a young pony. However, this whole situation took an unexpected turn when Brandon responded to the allegation by sharing a tweet. He claimed that the person's Twitter account shown in the screenshots wasn't actually his. According to him, it was an imposter and a troll trying to defame Brandon. Now, since commissions keep popping up in these controversies, it's worth taking a closer look at how Brandon actually prices his work. According to his post, he charges $50 for art and $100 for 3 to 5 minutes of audio commissions. Yes, people were genuinely paying that much for content tied to his online persona.
That only happened once with Lightning Star. Lightning Star was an OC that I adopted on Amino. Believe it or not.
So you adopted her and then she adopted you.
$50 will get you a free base art of your choice. $100 will get you an audio. This financial support only turned up deeper concerns, as his fixation on giant ponies went beyond fandom. His obsession with giant ponies wasn't just weird fandom stuff. It's openly tied to NSFW or not safe for work themes that he keeps pushing into spaces where they don't belong.
Sunset
Oh,
Shimmer.
smash! Hard smash! Hard smash!
Hard smash. Trixie Lulumoon.
I like her as a giantess, so smash.
Okay.
His content is always all about suggestive ideas, exaggerated bodies, and fantasy scenarios that feel less like creativity and more like self-satisfaction. And it is openly seen in his drawings, which are often posted on his art account on DeviantArt. While he mostly creates NSFW art, his other drawings feature him as the main character around the horse girls in MLP, portrayed as some kind of irresistible heartthrob.
I only like girls my age.
For context, DeviantArt is a large online community for artists to share, show, or even sell their art with others online. It can be digital art, photography, literature, and fan art. However, in Brandon's case, DeviantArt is nothing short of a personal fantasy board. For example, he made a drawing in 2017 in which he was happily trapped between two girls who were supposedly fighting over him. He also did a remake of the same drawing in 2024, and if you expect it to be any better, you might be wrong. In this new remake, Brandon did little to no improvement in his art. The worst part about this is that he used and still uses it as a base for his drawings. Base means a template or first layer of the drawing to help kickstart the detailing process.
Yeah, I like tough girls. I like mean girls at times. That's why I like Adagio. So.
Things get even stranger when you look at an account on DeviantArt that allegedly belonged to Brandon, known as EUF Lover. EUF means embarrassed, underweared, or undressed female. While it is unconfirmed that Brandon owned that account, many viewers believe it was his based on the content and behavior tied to it. My name is Brandon. This is my EUF account where I favorite girls in their underwear and where I get a big boner from them. The major part of Brandon's posts on this account, long before it was even discovered, were upskirts of My Little Ponies characters and other disturbing drawings. However, just as people started paying closer attention and digging deeper, the account was suddenly deleted.
Because she's with me in my stories, but she's not really taken, unless she's taken my flash off screen or something, I don't know.
Even before the account vanished, Brandon was already wrapped up in multiple online dramas. One of them was with a woman whose account was named Dark Knight Princess. Brandon had called her out in a post and asked everyone to block her, claiming she believed the pedophilic accusations against him instead of seeing him as someone who supposedly protected children. But the situation didn't end there. Dark Knight Princess responded by sharing his post and told everyone that Brandon was actually harassing her because she commented on a post exposing Brandon's creepy behavior. Please block this woman on all social media. She rather believe in liars who accuse me of kids, rather than a friend who protects them. I just noticed this. User is crazy. I don't even know what they're talking about. I think it's because I just made a comment on a tweet that was calling out their weird behavior a while back and now they're harassing me because of it. Check their bio. They're Brandon the Brony Pony. And somehow it got even worse. Brandon even went a step ahead and wished that the woman behind the account, Dark Knight Princess, would herself. Not just that, Brandon also wished ill on another person named Sour Patch King, hoping that their Discord server could get destroyed. He shared the sensitive text from his original account. At Dark Knight Princess, I hope you off yourself, and at Sour Patch King, I'm glad I ruined your Discord server. Brandon has over 2.3 thousand watchers, 823 deviations, and 281.3 thousand profile views on his account on DA. The situation spiraled out of control. Someone named the Darker Wolf 2004 dragged Brandon through the mud as a response to the first post against Dark Knight Princess. This post called out Brandon for the time when Brandon wanted to commission an artist for an NSFW drawing with a child pony, Apple Bloom. You wanted NSFW art of a Philly version of Starlight and told Swivel Star Song to make art of you having intercourse with a Ply Bloom. A child, might I add. You're a disgusting degenerate who needs to get knocked out of your wrongfully obtained pedestal you didn't even earn. Quit crying, Brandon.
Put that. I should not have typed that, and I admit that mistake.
But Brandon didn't hold back and came up with a solid response. He replied by sharing a screenshot of the person behind Darker Wolf account, who allegedly liked a girl. It says the one who favorited a girl being huggies on the butt. And this user, known as the Darker Wolf 2004, stepped in and called Brandon out, and this time the criticism was completely justified. EUF lover, Brandon's deleted account, had actually posted some disturbing stuff. One of his posts is about him asking for an NSFW of Philly Starlight. Philly Starlight is the younger version of the popular My Little Pony character, Starlight Glimmer. Can someone draw an NSFW of Philly Starlight, please? By asking to get an NSFW drawing, Brandon meant he wanted to get an explicit picture of this young Philly Starlight.
My Little Pony dating sim that's very NSFW called Pony Waifu Sim. Ever since I played that game and dated Twilight, I just completely fell in love with Twilight after I played that game.
Brandon also wished for something more disturbing. In a second post, he shared pictures of Horse Girl characters from MLP and said he wished they were in underwear. Wish these characters were in their underwear. The story shifted dramatically when Brandon posted a picture as a response to all that drama. However, it was later discovered that the picture was taken from Wikipedia's page. Things get even more disturbing when you realize that EUF Lover wasn't Brandon's only account on DeviantArt. Brandon had tons of other accounts as well, including DC Superhero Girls Fan 1. The proof that this account belonged to Brandon was in Profile's comments, where Brandon had responded from his original account. This account got famous for deeply unsettling reasons, one of which was its serious threats that you can see in this image. I hope you grandparents raped brutally. His other comment was just his plain rigidity, in which he claimed that he would continue to harass the girl. You can't get rid of me, I'll just keep harassing you on different accounts. Once people started noticing his predatory behavior, Brandon tried to cover it up. He announced that the EUF Lover account didn't belong to him, and that the owner of the account was an imposter. The same old excuse. But was it true this time? Can't say for sure. Brandon even attempted to take down the account by asking people to mass report it. Everyone, be sure to report EUF Lover as he's been impersonating me and trying to slander my name and make me look like an asshole. Report him to DA staff for impersonation. The asshole thought he could block me so he could get away with it. Here's his page. But people in the comments weren't convinced enough to believe him. Why should I believe you? Give me 2 good reasons why I should believe you, especially since you have no evidence to prove that EUF Lover is not your account. I do. Look at my new journal. Also, I blocked him. In the very next month, July 2023, Brandon made another post and showed weak proof that EUF Lover account was an imposter. He shared 3 screenshots proving that he was blocked by that account, and he even reported the EUF Lover to DeviantArt staff. And while trying to save his image, he ended up ruining it. People in the comments noticed disturbing internet searches, which were all related to searching for giantess. Probably giantess. Brandon even went a step further and created a video about this entire scenario. In the video, he claimed that a person named Solar Moon Eclipse was the imposter on EUF Lover and other accounts, harassing people and being a pedophile on DeviantArt.
EUF Lover and harassing people on Twitch and Twitter and DeviantArt. That was done by Solar Moon Eclipse, who was out to frame me further. And I'll have the entire Google Doc linked below, but she was pretending to be me and saying she was me and basically harassing people and convincing people that she was me and then convincing people that I'm a bad person.
While all this was happening, Brandon also tried posting gaming content. His YouTube channel, which mostly posts My Little Pony content, at some point posted lots of Persona 5 content. Persona 5 is a Japanese role-playing game about high school students living double lives as thieves while exposing corrupt adults. This game, unfortunately, aligned all too well with Brandon's strange interests, as Brandon's also into role-playing with My Little Pony characters.
Hey.
Oh, hey. Brandon, shouldn't you be playing with the others?
Well, I noticed you were over here all by yourself. You think I wouldn't notice? Of course I'm gonna keep you company.
That's sweet, but I'm fine, really. I want you to have fun.
Brandon's lean towards Persona 5 was very brief. It was because his voiceover artist stopped contributing to this project, and he had to return to posting creepy SMLP content. He also announced this in a post. I, unfortunately, will have to cancel my Persona 5 series. Sunrise Saber, my Akichi VA, has deleted his Discord account, meaning he likely has left the project, plus my artist GU has gone completely silent. Now you might be wondering about Brandon's family background and what led him to this seriously troubling state. He actually laid almost everything out himself during an interview with an anonymous man wearing a green suit.
Yeah, makes sense. I guess they're jealous of me because I got to go to Equestria in a video or something.
Now I'm jealous of you because you steal Twilight. What's up with that?
In the interview, Brandon claimed that he couldn't complete his graduation and his high school life because of frequent mental breakdowns. Apparently, Brandon is autistic, and even has schizophrenia, both of which are visible in his behavior throughout his YouTube activity and online presence.
Because I love both worlds. I love both worlds. I love the idea of going back to high school and like redoing high school, but at Canela High, because I missed my graduation ceremony because I was having a downward spiral and stuff. And I was having a really bad...
Brandon also had been on medication for his mental health, and he had stopped taking them. This resulted in his mental breakdowns. His only dream was to relive his childhood and attend his graduation ceremony, missed due to his mental health.
Mental breakdown, and I was off my meds. So, like, basically, because of that, I didn't attend my graduation ceremony. So my dream is to become a teenager again, go back to high school, and go back to CHS.
To cope, he immersed himself in fantasies about meeting cartoon ponies and horses. He claimed this helped him deal with a supposedly traumatic childhood.
So basically, I created Lightning Star's personality to be a sort of loving mother, to be the loving mother that I always wished I sort of had.
And it didn't come as a surprise when he wished that he could be adopted by an imaginary pony to escape his mother. He claimed that his mother wasn't the ordinary loving mom, and he had been through trauma because of that.
I do it is because my mother in real life is kind of... I don't want to go too into it in case she sees this, but she's not the most loving mother that I've had. She's not the most loving, compassionate mom.
Which, by the way, likely doesn't exist. It was revealed in a video titled Our Mini Brony, which suggested that Brandon might not have actual mom and dad. He lived and might still be living with his cousin. In the video, he appeared to talk to two MLP characters about his family drama, like it was a therapy session with toys.
Why did you ask for parents? Did you have parents before?
Well, sort of. I lived with my cousin and aunt. I knew my mom, but I didn't live with her, and I never knew my real father. Don't know what he looks like, his name, nothing.
For the record, Brandon's full name is Brandon Hackwith, and according to Fast People Search and Kiwi Farms, he was born on January 28, 1999, and he is currently living in California. Surprisingly, or maybe not, Brandon's absolutely everywhere. He has more than enough accounts spread across different platforms. Some of them are Brandon Hackwith5637, Brandon3289 on Zynga, Brandon Unicorn99 on Google, Brandon Unicorn on Dropbox, Secret Agent Stallion on MU Paradise, and others. He also had 2 accounts on Tumblr and a Quora account. His email addresses go like yodatalker@yahoo.com, and the other one is secretagentfriendshipunicorn@gmail.com. But here's where it stops being funny and starts getting uncomfortable. Buried among all these accounts are 2 separate profiles, and that detail alone raises far more questions than Brandon probably once answered. On YouTube, Brandon's channel, Brony Pony Productions, has 1 video that clearly stands above the rest. His most viewed upload is an ASMR roleplay video. It features a pony, Twilight Sparkle, talking to the audience with the rain sound in the background. Hey, this video was uploaded 4 years ago, and now has around 320,000 views. And here's where it gets awkward. The pony Twilight Sparkle doesn't only speak or read stories to you, but also gives you a random kiss for an unknown reason. Yes, really.
Really lucky to have you. Really, I am.
And the audience really loved the kiss, and overall ASMR. I've been suffering from depression lately. Listening to Twilight's soothing voice makes me feel so much better. That kiss actually made me blush while sleeping. The channel has about 11.7 thousand subscribers, or Bronies, who apparently enjoy watching Brandon act this way toward MLP characters. It won't be wrong to say that Brandon is someone who is pulled out of the peak Brony era, the time when Bronies were making a name, and thrown into the 2020s, of course, without a warning label. People say that characters like Brandon do not exist anymore, but he exists only to prove that theory wrong. And this explains why he is so completely hopeless at doing every job, including his drawings, audio works, editing, animation, and direction. Literally everything that he does on his channel. Somehow, everything on his channel turns out bad. Because of that, every new format he experiments with turns into unintentional comedy. The worth mentioning part is how most of his YouTube series related to MLP don't actually make it past the first episode. They start, collapse immediately, and then quietly disappear.
Yeah, I could use a dream or a genie or a wish to go back to a place much simpler than this. Cause after all the partying and smashing and crashing and all the glitz and the glam.
He once started a series named Brony Meets Equestria, which was discontinued just after 1 episode. Brandon didn't share any reason to discontinue it.
Oh my god, I'm actually in Equestria.
This is actually the apple orchard. Oh my god.
This sudden halt mirrors his ongoing struggles with social interaction. While he has not admitted publicly that he is autistic, he has claimed online that he struggles with social cues a lot. This explains a lot why he is unable to form new relationships or friendships with people in real life. Instead of trying to build new relations and learning from real human interaction, Brandon keeps pushing himself further inward. He finds it rather easy to lose himself in the imaginary world of My Little Pony, sometimes quite literally, and uses fictional characters as emotional stand-ins or connections that he is unable to form in the real world. Here's the worst part. Brandon's out-of-control autism has caused a lot of difficulties in his life, including severe mental breakdowns. Brandon calls his mental breakdown schizoid. It is unclear whether it is really schizophrenia or just the way he feels overwhelmed. According to him, recording and voice work trigger these breakdowns so severely that he was forced to raise his prices, claiming the stress causes schizophrenic episodes. I've raised my prices slightly, mainly due to how much working in audios affects my mental health, and sometimes causes me to have schizophrenic episodes. And while Brandon already struggles to build real-life relationships because of his autism, there's another reason behind it, and it's far more disturbing than it first appears. It's because Brandon is often seen passing NSFW comments for women online.
Bigger than a planet where they can eat a planet whole, basically.
That never made too much sense to me. Like I never clicked with that kind of stuff.
In the same interview with the man in the green suit, Brandon made things even stranger by admitting he has a macro fetish, also known as macro. This means being attracted to giant people or beings.
You guys are aware of this. This may seem weird to say, but I kind of have a macro-micro fetish. I don't know if you guys know about that.
So like
if
you want
you
want the pony to be big.
Yeah, or to be shrunk near the pony.
He didn't stop there. He added that he wanted ponies to be the size of buildings, or even as big as the planet, somehow making an already awkward moment even worse.
Twice as big as a person.
Yeah, I'm talking about like building size, or even mountain size, or even planet sized. Like
planet size.
Yeah, like.
See?
It's perhaps no surprise, then, that in 2017 he launched his YouTube channel, Brony Pony Productions, where he could bring these fantasies to life by creating audios and videos set in Equestria, the magical world of My Little Pony.
Hey every pony, it's me, Brandon Hackworth. Just wanted to do a video for all of you guys. Guess what I've got to unbox for all of you today.
The first video on his channel was a basic Nintendo unboxing.
I now have a Nintendo Switch, and here's the proof, everyone. Oh, I'm holding it wrong. Here is the proof.
Soon after, he uploaded his first roleplay audio featuring a character called Brand Shimmer, a horse girl from the MLP universe. It was his first audio, which was uploaded on August 26th of that year. The video is titled Equestria Girls Brand Shimmer Audio, Flatter Sunset.
Hey, Sunset? What you writing about?
What? Nothing. I, lost an earring. There it is.
Okay.
From there, the pattern became obvious. Brandon wanted every horse girl in Equestria to be obsessed with him. He went on to create hundreds of similar audios where he speaks directly to MLP characters, often using poorly written scripts. Other voice actors would play the pony characters, but the focus always stayed firmly on Brandon.
You just showed up!
Last thing I remember, I was racing down a canyon road, but falling off.
It's okay, darling. I will take care of you.
Okay.
And it didn't stop at audio. He also tried making different live-action series featuring different MLP ponies. All Brandon wants to do is to fuse the real world with Equestria. Some of these projects include Equestria Girls Christmas Party series, Equestria Girls, a Brony at Canterlot High,
blanketing the room in anonymous blue light as he got off his bed, shielding his eyes.
Holy shit! What's going on?
The silhouette appeared to be female.
and others.
Mine being one of them. I like to think that my human world is kinda like the main one, so yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. I've never heard of anything like that before.
But here's something worth noting about Brandon's financial situation. Brandon doesn't actually have a real job, and he barely makes $100 to $200 per month from his YouTube channel. Yet somehow he hires voice actors for his series and pays them hundreds of dollars for each episode. How that math works is anyone's guess. The explanation seems to be his audience. There are people who are more autistic than Brandon himself, supporting his weird fetishes, according to Kiwi Farms, who constantly support him with donations. These fans are more than willing to send him large amounts of money, just so he can continue living in the My Little Pony fantasy world. Luckily, I might be getting a donation of $200 or more on the first, so I'll be able to pay off the rest of the artwork. And Brandon blows all of it in his series, which barely survive 3 to 4 episodes and often end abruptly. Due to Brandon's increasingly strange and troubling behavior, many YouTubers mocked Brandon and exposed him for his predatory behavior.
Now that you mentioned a welcome to Ponyville party, that actually does get me really excited. Sorry.
What are you sorry for? We're all friends here. We don't judge, dude. Hey.
One of the worth mentioning YouTubers is Blue X Hand Spirit, or Aaron Greenberg. This person got into a full-blown rivalry with Brandon on YouTube and released multiple videos breaking down Brandon's behavior in detail.
That he claims. And bit of a warning, it might be the most bullshit community post I ever read.
Blue X especially focused on the Discord incident where Brandon sent the message, "I lick girls' butt crack." The videos often showed the MLP game in the background while showing Brandon's messages on screen. Brandon later admitted the message was creepy and tried to excuse it, which Blue X also covered in commentary videos reacting to Brandon's apology.
So I said creepy things in some Discord servers a while back. For example, I said to a girl who had her name as butt crack, licks a girl's, then pinged her.
He also made several other videos on Brandon, but then suddenly vanished from the internet. With his disappearance, all of his videos were also gone. However, some of his videos were later archived and re-uploaded by others. Blue X wasn't the only one to clash with Brandon. Another user, Buzzy Trombone, aka Paper Mario Fan 1, got into an online fight with Brandon on DeviantArt.
Say cheese, you fucking crank.
It started with Brandon's other account, Equestria Girls Brony, which made shocking comments for Paper Mario Fan, going as far as wishing murder on their parents. "I hope your parents get murdered." This person then blocked Brandon on DeviantArt, and Brandon commented again from his alternate account, "The only reason you blocked me is because you are a scared little pussy who's too afraid to get called out. You're a lad, piss off." This online feud took a wild turn when Buzzy took it off from DeviantArt to YouTube. He made a bunch of mocking videos on YouTube showing Brandon's unhinged moments. The titles alone said it all, with names like Dumb Asshole Brandon, Dumb Bastard, Brandon Faking Tourette's, and others. At this point, Buzzy had basically earned the title of Brandon's biggest hater.
Not racist, I promise you. I promise you I am not racist.
While all of this was happening online, Brandon wasn't working alone in real life either. Most of Brandon's real life series weren't made alone. He executes his real life series with the assistance of his friend Zach. Kiwi Farm members were actually able to dig up Zach's photo with the caption, "Zach isn't trans, he just looks like that." Zach was also featured in one of Brandon's one-episode series named Ponies on Earth, Episode 1. The video's exactly as strange as it sounds. It shows Zach walking around his neighborhood with no clear purpose, then suddenly running for no reason at all. Moments later, he finds a My Little Pony character inside his house, chasing him in an oddly friendly way.
Where are you? Oh, it's just a talking horse. A talking horse!
Then comes the legendary Brandon. One of the ponies somehow comes out of his television and attacks him. That's the episode. That's the plot.
Huh?
What was that?
I don't know, it sounded like it came from my room. It was really loud, too.
As Brandon accumulated fans who donated him hundreds of bucks to keep these projects alive, he also attracted trolls, or as Kiwi Farms likes to call them, A-logs. But don't think of these trolls as someone with a big brain because they are equally autistic as Brandon. One of them was Ryan on Wi-Fi, who usually makes videos on lolcows, especially on bronies like Brandon. The most distinguishing feature of Ryan is that he wears fishnets and lingerie. But things took a much darker turn when Ryan made serious allegations against Brandon. He accused Brandon a 15-year-old. He had actually come out with a video discussing the accusations in detail, but that video was later deleted, but not before it was archived by another YouTube channel called Jedi Griffin Pictures.
Tapping this link. Here you will be directed to Brandon the Brony Pony's DeviantArt profile. Now let's read the chat logs that were sent from that account. Remember, the victim was 15 at the time when these events took place, and Brandon was legally an adult.
In the video, Ryan laid out all the details and even shared screenshots of Brandon, clearly displaying Brandon's pedophilic behavior. At the time, Brandon was actually auditioning voice actors for the Starlight Pony character for his MLP series. One of the applicants was a 15-year-old who reached out to Brandon to ask about the role. Brandon, in return, asked for the stage, and if they would be okay with NSFW chats.
How old are you, by the way? 15, almost 16, installing Discord now. Are you okay with NSFW? Don't worry, it is only voice acting.
He had already written an explicit audition script for the character and wanted the minor to read it. The script made the teen uncomfortable, and instead of backing off, Brandon reportedly criticized the microphone quality.
I have a script ready for your audition as Starlight. Starlight is the most beautiful pony in all of Equestria. We don't need editors, we need voice actors. I guess your mic kinda sucked, so maybe you can help write the scripts. Sounds good. Your Starlight impression was beautiful.
Brandon already thought he had a way around the problem. He offered to send the minor a spare microphone he owned and even asked for their home address, and he actually sent this blue snowball microphone to the minor's house. Brandon also asked the minor to install Discord and continue the conversation there. During this exchange, Brandon crossed another line. He sent his shirtless photo holding a toy and asked the minor to replace the toy with a Starlight pony.
I'm shirtless because it was an intimate moment between me and Starlight. The toy is where I want you to edit Starlight onto the image. Dude, I'm not going to make it look like she's using it.
When the minor sent back an edited image with Starlight in Brandon's arms, things only got worse. Brandon kept pushing and asked them to add another pony to the image. Brandon wanted the pony to smell his toes. This clearly made the minor feel uncomfortable.
Can you edit Sunset on there too? I want her smelling my toes. Make sure it is Equestria Girl's version. Can you also cover my nipple using Twilight's cutie mark? No offense, dude, but I'm a little creeped out by this.
Not long after that, Brandon asked the minor if they liked him. That was the breaking point. The minor accused Brandon of taking advantage of their autism. However, it all took a strange twist. The conversation ended abruptly when Brandon discovered that the minor was actually a boy.
Do you like me? Brandon, I've been friends with you for a few months now, and you keep asking me to do sexual stuff. When can I be in your series? Are you using me? I think you're taking advantage of my autism. You thought I was a girl? No one can ever know about this. I don't think we can be friends anymore.
Once Ryan's expose video started spreading across Brony spaces, Brandon went into full damage control mode. Brandon uploaded 3 videos trying to disprove the allegations. In the first video, Brandon claimed that he never did anything wrong with underage girls.
Allegations going around that I'm a pedophile and a predator, and that I've done some inappropriate things to younger girls. Well, I just want to let you all know that is not true. None of that has ever happened. I have never done anything inappropriate with underage girls. I would never do that because I'm better than that.
But instead of actually addressing the accusations, he spent most of the time panicking about Discord. Someone had threatened to get him IP banned, and Brandon openly begged, saying Discord was his entire life. According to him, losing Discord would completely ruin him.
Rumors? Because someone on Discord said they were going to try to get me IP banned, and Discord is my life. I do everything on Discord. So if I got IP banned, that would basically ruin my life.
The very next day, he uploaded one more video about the allegations, and this one was hard to watch. He fake cried for 7 minutes straight and said he didn't do it. He took awkward pauses, covered his face, stimmed, stared at the camera, and then repeated the cycle again and again.
I didn't do it, guys. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I swear. I'm really upset. I know the other video kind of didn't have mic included, but
in the third and final video, Brandon showed his DeviantArt account's chats to prove that he never chatted with a minor like that. In short, he threw everything he could at the wall in hopes something would stick.
I'm gonna go through all my chats. These are all my chats. All of my chats right here. And I don't delete any chats. I don't delete any of my chats. I can prove it. These are all my chats.
For reasons that still don't make much sense, Brandon also started sending out copyright strikes, fake ones, along with a cease and desist letter to YouTuber K0SMIC. He didn't want anyone defaming him on any platforms, but it turned out the YouTuber never made any video on Brandon. The fallout hit Brandon hard. He canceled several of his already failing YouTube series, but the biggest blow came from his real life. Zach, his longtime friend and collaborator, completely disappeared, as the allegations had reached Zach's parents and they didn't allow Zach to talk to him. Zach also allegedly blocked Brandon, leaving him on his own.
I almost did a G5 series where it's going to be a G5 Isekai series where it's going to be kind of like an audiobook series. But I ended up losing my collaborator for it because of my drama, and it wasn't that he believed it, but his parents did, and they wouldn't let him talk to me anymore, so I couldn't collaborate with him. So I plan on maybe bringing it back one day.
And this is where the whole drama took a strange twist, according to Kiwi Farms. The entire allegations drama was fake and staged by Ryan on Wi-Fi. He worked with a known troll named Lith and used them to plant rumors and push the story as far as possible. Surprisingly, the real target wasn't even Brandon. It was a drama YouTuber named Crispy, who was known for covering lolcow controversies. Crispy did what he always did. He covered Brandon's situation without properly verifying the claims. And then the trolls falsely accused another person, Tootsie Forever, of being a plushie molester in Crispy's DMs.
Someone called Jesse on Twitter who said, hey, I've got a story about Tootsie Forever, you know, blah blah blah. They told me this whole thing and it was like, okay mate, I did the wrong thing and I didn't question it enough, and I kind of ran with it, very selfishly and in a way.
Crispy quickly made a video on it, and once Crispy was trapped in their elaborate troll plan, they flipped the script.
The episode went up, and within about 7 hours, Tootsie reached out to me and was like, hey, yeah, this is bullshit. and him and his friends kind of gave their alibi, or whatever you want to call it, you know, their story of what happened, and I was like, alright, cool.
Suddenly, the focus shifted from Brandon to making Crispy look incompetent and reckless, accusing him of calling everyone a predator and spreading misinformation.
Tootsie is an innocent man who had totally false allegations thrown at him, and I played a part in those allegations being thrown. You suck!
Not long after that, all of the troll videos connected to this drama quietly disappeared. Crispy wiped his content too. The reason for deleting everything wasn't only because of his videos on false allegations, but also because of his controversial livestream. He had allegedly and accidentally shown NSFW art of MLP ponies, and guess what? A child was watching the livestream at the time it flashed. Crispy later said he deleted his channel because of the accusations, and the mental toll the backlash took on him.
Crispy wasn't the one who searched for the images. He broadcasted the stream while Aaron was the one who searched for the images on Derpy. The images shown were suggestive at most when it came to the ratings, and there was no questionable or explicit content that was shown on the page.
Ryan on Wi-Fi later shared a post in support of Brandon, calling him the best brony out there. I would like to express my respect for Brony content creator Brandon Hackworth from Brony Pony Productions. As for Brandon, he went completely silent. He deleted all of his social media accounts except for his YouTube channel and DeviantArt account. He is currently continuing to work and posting the Equestria Girls series.
Somehow traveled through time and ended up here?
Yep, that's pretty much the gist of it, bro.
Jeez, talk about a mind fuck.
Yeah, well, it's going to get crazier, trust me.
On top of that, he's reportedly working on a Gravity Falls dating sim, where players can date the female characters from the show, because apparently that's the natural next step.
An animal for its taste is a bigger than an animal for pleasure would be. Well, we know this isn't true, because animals who don't become. Sure, some dogs who are traumatized by owners might stop accepting food from other people, but this is because of fear and lack of trust in people.
We can agree with
so
that.
You believe that it cannot be a. You believe that it cannot be
No,
innate
it's
for
no.
every single
Oh, if
person.
you want me to be very real, it's not a. It is quite.
I believe it can be.
That's okay. Then
I'm trying to calm down, Mom, but you're not. I'm trying to be famous.
Dansburst, we can't talk to you when you keep on doing this. I don't know why you're doing this.
I'm doing this because my mother is in the room with me right now, and
She's not letting me film my video.
That voice belongs to 21-year-old Herbert Kenneth Wachaka, better known as Timmy, or by his pony persona, Dansburst. He's a brony, which is a term for a grown-up or teenage male fan of the animated series My Little Pony.
My little pony, my little pony, all in a twinkling, spring is here. My little pony.
And he keeps using the word axiom to feel smart.
And I agree with the consent axiom applied to humans. I'm telling you the result of the deductions of my moral axioms, but I haven't told you the axioms that I'm starting from. So can I tell you the axioms that I'm starting from? First, we can talk about what axioms we should be starting from, then we can talk about what we can deduce from those axioms.
But Dansburst isn't just a delusional intellectual, he's dangerous. And this is a self-diagnosed autistic man who has argued that 5-year-old kids can consent to
I believe it's severely and very improbable that a 5-year-old is going to give their free expression of indication of desire in regarding the act.
This is also a man who has no issues throwing the word around like ping pong ball, like in this thread where Dansburst essentially tweeted, "Can I you?" before responding that he doesn't date blacks, not even the ones. Here's another horrible revelation. Dansburst is a hardcore pedophile apologist and defender. He believes that punishment for pedophiles is nothing but a political agenda and a ruthless, senseless violence against people who question technically go by their own rules of consent. And as if that isn't nauseating enough, he also defends zoophilia in long YouTube videos full of half-witted garbage. Dansburst refers to children as foals, which is a term for young horses, and he openly bragged about having a foal, also known as orgy for kids, in a magical My Little Pony land called Equestria, where there are no age of consent laws. This brony is so infamous that he managed to get himself banned from both Ponytown and Kiwi Farms, two places where you really have to try to get kicked out. As of today, Dansburst is a ghost on the internet because he deleted everything related to his name and disgusting philosophies back in 2024. However, traces of his degeneracy are still polluting the web space.
I don't think there's anything wrong with consuming content that glorifies or simulates murder or... These things don't cause in the real world, and I don't think that they should be outlawed.
Who is this deranged guy, and what did he do to get kicked off the internet? Stick around as unravel the sick clown called Dansburst layer by layer.
You are! This is why I'm never gonna be with you again! I'm gonna break up with you and you're never gonna see me again! I'm gonna so Michael, and you will be the one you will pay!
To start off, let's talk about what Dansburst called his intellectual magnum opus, a YouTube video titled Dansburst Debunks, The Immorality of Zoophilia. It was 25 minutes long and was uploaded on August 7th in 2024. The thumbnail itself should have gotten Dansburst in deep legal hot water because it featured My Little Pony characters in suggestive positions with animals. For Dansburst, this was a legitimate academic discourse. His argument was centered around 2 points, zoophilia being wrong and zoophilia being illegal.
I'm going to be arguing against 2 separate but related claims. First, that zoophilia is morally wrong, and next, that zoophilia should be illegal. Well, let's start with the first.
The video was a response to a furry artist named Tibbles, who had the reasonable opinion that defending zoophilia makes you a bad person.
This is going to be the first of 2 videos responding to Tibbles Yorkie, the canine. This video was a long time in the making. I started it like a month ago, at first as a response to her role in the El Money drama. But after I looked more into Tibbles, I saw a number of social media posts where she platforms herself as one of the activists in the latest wave of the dogmatic crusade against zoophilia.
Dansburst, being the brave intellectual warrior he is, tried to debate Tibbles on this topic and quickly got blocked because, you know, normal people wouldn't think to debate whether animal is ethical. Most people would have accepted defeat and moved on, but Dansburst didn't let it go. He needed the world to hear his arguments, so he spent weeks crafting his 25-minute manifesto. Dansburst's first unsettling argument is this: if you're willing to eat animals, you should also be willing to have with them, because apparently in Dansburst's mind, these 2 things are morally equivalent.
A lot of anti-zoophilia think that an animal is morally wrong and makes you a bad person. And people have, of course, asked them, why is that any different than eating an animal?
This type of argument was exactly what you'd expect from someone who spends their days role-playing as a cartoon horse. Dansburst literally compared eating meat of animals, suggesting that if you're fine with one, you should be fine with the other. And this sadistic opening was only the beginning, as Dansburst continued to spit more of his intellectual drivel. He claimed that humans still hunt and eat animals despite having an abundance of tofu. And this behavior was enough proof for him that zoophilia is not immoral.
The anti-zoophilia reply that we have to eat animals for nutrition, and even if we didn't, vegan stuff would be more expensive. But what if this weren't true? Here's my main claim. Even if all humans had readily available 100% nutritious bland tofu, it wouldn't be wrong or immoral for a human to hunt and kill an ostrich, either because they like the taste of its meat or because they enjoy the thrill of the hunt. It turns out that this is all we need to deduce that zoophilia is not immoral.
His logic is so painfully dense that you could have a migraine trying to understand him. But here's a breakdown of the message Dansburst was trying to pass across. He's essentially arguing that because humans are omnivores who eat meat, and because we place human desires above animal welfare when it comes to food, and then we should also place human desires above animal welfare. Here's an illustration that might help. If humans still hunt animals despite having an abundance of spinach, it means that humans still value their desire to eat meat. And in a similar way, this selfish law could also apply to humans with desires towards animals. Going by this logic, Dansburst was basically saying that craving hot dogs was on the same moral compass as a dog. In fact, it got to a point where he straight up claimed that animals was much worse than them.
We know it's fine to eat an ostrich to taste its meat or for the thrill of the hunt. This means it's not immoral to prioritize frivolous human taste or hunt pleasure over an animal's life. Eating an animal for its taste is a bigger harm to the animal than eating it for pleasure would be.
Dansburst reasoned that animals that are don't become. This is what passes for philosophical reasoning in Dansburst's world.
Some say that non-mutilated would somehow traumatize an animal so much that it would be worse than them. We know this isn't true because animals who are don't become.
He completely dismissed the concept of animal consent entirely, arguing that since animals can't verbally communicate, we can never truly know if they're being emotionally. To prove his nonsensical point, Dansburst had to use a traumatized dog as an example, stating that although such a dog might refuse to accept food from its assailants, it would still eat the food when left alone. For Dansburst, this inherently meant that the dog wasn't hurt emotionally.
Sure, some dogs who are traumatized by owners might stop accepting food from other people, but this is because of fear and lack of trust in people. If you leave food in an empty room with them, they're gonna eat it, instead of starving themselves.
Dansburst continued to argue that all animals value reproduction over their own lives, and would therefore not feel a sense of depression.
All non-human species value reproduction first, then life, and then avoiding pain, in that order and without exception. Barring self-sacrifice to save their young, there hasn't been a single documented case of pet animals or wild animals committing especially not due to something like depression.
The take-home from Dansburst's 25-minute-long rambles is that animals are really dense creatures that humans could derive pleasure from. This pleasure could be, firstly, in the form of taste, which humans can obtain from the thrill of hunts or the animal's meat, or secondly, from pleasure. However, there's a huge flaw in this argument. Animals are also emotional beings. They feel depressed and can also be pushed to make life-threatening choices. A researcher named Gernot Wieland, who had written works on psychological conditions in society and human beings, spoke largely on this topic at a TEDx conference in 2016. Wieland used the story of a depressed zebra to prove this point. According to Wieland, this zebra had attempted to escape from a zoo multiple times. It eventually succeeded one last time. However, during its transport back to its enclosure, the zebra jumped out of the moving truck and broke its neck. Experts considered this self-destructive behavior as evidence of. Other than that, animals also behave rashly when pushed by a number of mental and emotional factors. We have dogs whining and crying due to separation and anxiety, and animals that never forget a face, especially when humans have either been kind or wicked to them. An example are elephants. They can hold a grudge against you even beyond death. There was a popular case in India in 2022 when an elephant killed a 70-year-old woman and still returned to trample on her corpse at her funeral. The elephant was on a mission to attack that woman, not anyone else. It's unclear what had sparked the bad blood between them, but one thing's for sure. The elephant was upset with the woman. All these factors eventually point to one conclusion. Animals are just the emotional beings as humans, and shouldn't be made to live with the trauma that comes with. Unfortunately, this wasn't Dansburst's driving point. He believed that as long as the animal doesn't literally commit, it wasn't that bad. This is a real argument a real person made, in a real video that they uploaded to YouTube and were proud of. Dansburst even sunk lower in his debate by ushering in the topic of spirituality. According to him, placing animals' will over that of humans was contradicting God's set laws that humans commanded the earth.
Speaking in spiritual terms, God made a natural hierarchy of all living things: bacteria, plants, invertebrates, vertebrates, non-human mammals, humans, angels, and God. To place an animal's will before a human's will in any moral consideration is to debase God's vision of humans as the natural rulers of Earth.
So not only is animals okay according to Dansburst, but it's actually an insult to God not to them, because it means you're not properly exercising your dominion over the natural world. As if twisting religious doctrines wasn't disgusting enough, he doubled down by stating that anti-zoophilia advocates would naturally refute his arguments on grounds of emotional cruelty. And if that were to be the case, Dansburst stated that emotional cruelty should only factor into the consequences of the actions, and not morals.
These people would say that because satisfying the desire in this case is more cruel, it should be given less weight. I don't think emotional cruelty should factor into morality assessments at all, only the consequences of the actions.
This is particularly rich coming from a guy who constantly accuses his critics of being too emotional and not logical enough. But when it's convenient for his argument, suddenly consequences are all that matter, and the psychological trauma inflicted on a living creature is irrelevant. Throughout the video, Dansburst uses his standard pseudo-intellectual vocabulary such as axioms and logical deductions to dress up his justification of animal abuse. To the surprise of no one in particular, the video was not well received. The like-to-dislike ratio was devastating. Over 80 poor viewers who had to endure Dansburst's nonsensical arguments gave it a thumbs down, while 17 morally conflicted people liked it. Regardless of the undeniably sad thumb-ups Dansburst received, the comments were largely against his favor. This is disgusting. Animals can't consent. It was glaringly obvious that his video was perceived as a junkyard, but did Dansburst take this as a sign that his arguments were made of? Of course not. Instead of deleting it like a normal human being, he doubled down and started responding to comments. First, he mentioned a commenter for disagreeing on the topic of animal consent. In his words, it's irrelevant to morality assessments whether they can consent or not. If I would be Zoph, because you are a mindless parrot, but you're not my type. Then in another breath, he indirectly called everyone who disagreed with him conformists. I'd rather be a weirdo than a conformist. I'm not afraid to speak up when I detect inconsistencies in society's implicit mora axioms. Dansburst's words were sending a message of superiority, as if he was declaring that he wasn't wrong and people misunderstood him because he was more enlightened than them. His case eventually descended further down into the wells of stupidity, when he later engaged in a hot debate on the same topic with another YouTuber named Hunter Avalone. Hunter is a lolcow and political commentator on YouTuber who had come across Dansburst the lunatic zoophilia video and decided to platform him for a debate. The event took place on August 22nd, 2024. Dansburst brought his usual encyclopedia of their deranged philosophies, as well as the confidence of a man who would walk around in yellow pencil jeans.
Hello. Hunter, hi. So, let me lay out my main argument. Basically, moral axioms. Vosh is a consequentialist. I want to know how you describe yourself.
Meanwhile, Hunter came prepared with actual moral philosophy, actual logical frameworks, and, most importantly, the basic human instinct that tells you animals is wrong. He wasn't the sharpest tool in the toolbox, but he still managed to floor Dansburst in the debate. As usual, Dansburst opened the floor by asking Hunter his basis of morality for his anti-zoophilia stance.
I'm asking you, what system of morality do you have specifically and firmly that tells you why it shouldn't be moral?
Hunter responded by highlighting the risks of contracting diseases.
Because it's first of all,
do you believe it brings negative consequences for humans? Do you believe it
can raise the risk for there are risks of diseases for humans. Okay, there are risks of diseases for humans, not even STDs necessarily. However, there are diseases that can be passed from animals to humans.
And he also pointed out that in animals is totally unnecessary, since there are no real benefits.
2. It's completely unnecessary. There is nothing that there's nothing to. Hold on, stop. I'm not done yet. I know that with morals, we have to. I know that with morals, things can be neutral. I know that things do not only need to be beneficial. However, it is of an animal, of another living thing that cannot consent. Yes, something that cannot consent.
In a pathetic attempt to drive his non-existent point home, Dansburst stooped low and brought up the case of. He likened Hunter's key points to stating that it was unnecessary and there were risks of contradicting diseases, yet humans still engage in it. He also added that consent in the human sense of should not be extended to animals.
First of all, prostitution is there are diseases involved in prostitution. Prostitution is just as quote-unquote unnecessary. You may say that is okay because it doesn't violate your consent axiom, but the issue with the consent axiom is that frankly, it's very inconsistent when you apply the consent axiom to animals.
Hunter easily dismantled this claim by bringing up the essence of empathy, citing that some people choose for emotional and personal reasons. This, in itself, proved that there was some level of consent involved, unlike in cases involving animals.
There's also something to be said about empathizing with why somebody would be able prostitute. Most people are not just like, hey, I want to be a prostitute today. They're usually that way because they have reached some kind of a bad place in their life.
The argument hit a tough spot for Dansburst when he started yapping about how people get into OnlyFans because it's useful to them.
Right, but what about OnlyFans people who do it because it's a good living for them? There are some of them who are pressured into it, but some other of them also do it because they find it useful to them, they are not seriously traumatized by the work, etc.
What Dansburst hadn't realized was that this particular point worked in Hunter's favor, because it revealed that people still engage in sexual acts for benefits, and animals is an unnecessary harm to everyone concerned. He was basically shooting himself in the leg by buying into his opponent's claims without realizing it, and his stupidity eventually cost him the debate when he backtracked and told Hunter that the whole thing was totally unrelated.
But I don't see how this relates to my debunking of the consent act.
You just brought up the prostitute thing.
Yes, I brought up the thing. So with the prostitute thing, okay, you say that the prostitute thing isn't a valid comparison because it doesn't violate the consent axiom.
It was clear that Dansburst had lost the argument long before it even started. The whole debate was full of him yapping and contradicting himself. Meanwhile, Hunter, to his credit, simply maintained the position that animals cannot consent, and that consent is necessary for ethical interactions. It shouldn't have been a difficult argument to win, but Dansburst thoroughly embarrassed himself and made Hunter look like Aristotle in the process. Hunter won decisively in the eyes of his audience, but Dansburst didn't seem to think so. Following the debate, he posted a very long thread on his YouTube page, claiming that he'd actually won, and that Hunter had failed to prove him wrong by his own logic. He just couldn't accept that maybe, just maybe, defending best was an indefensible position. This is a pattern we're going to see over and over again with Dansburst. No matter how badly he loses, how thoroughly he's debunked, or how much evidence piles up against him, he simply cannot admit that he's wrong. His ego won't allow it. Dansburst's entire identity was built around being this brave truth-teller who is willing to challenge society's taboos. Therefore, admitting that he's actually just a creepy weirdo would shatter that delusion completely. This is why he continued to plunge deeper into his pseudo-intellectual online degeneracy, moving from zoo to yet another controversial topic. If defending zoo wasn't enough to cement Dansburst's status as a degenerate, his views on children would remove all doubt. Dansburst is what's known as a MAP defender. For those fortunate enough to not know what this means, MAP stands for Minor Attracted Person, which is a term that was popularized by pedophiles in a desperate attempt to rebrand themselves as a misunderstood orientation. People with this orientation believe that they're different from pedophiles because they emotionally bond with children rather than act on sexual urges.
In fact, the biggest issue is not part of it, it's the emotional part of it. It's the part where, like, if I get to know a child, I fall in love with them, and then, as you can imagine, that you can't, there's nothing you can do with it.
They even tried to infiltrate LGBTQ spaces, claiming they deserved acceptance and representation just like gay and trans people. However, the members of the community rejected this immoral class. However, Dansburst wasn't amongst the vast percentage of people who rejected this group of people. He'd once claimed that he wasn't a attracted person himself, but that didn't stop him from being their most vocal defender. Using his platform, Dansburst made multiple posts defending MAP rights and arguing that society's treatment of pedophiles is unjust. He once got upset when people suggested pedophiles should be thrown in wood chippers, calling it ruthless, senseless violence against people with a different orientation about consent. As if that wasn't telling enough, Dansburst also defended a notorious pedophile web artist named Shadman. This is what he wrote about Shadman, defending his alleged child rape. If Shadman had kid in real life, then sure, that's no good, but this is a nice young girl. Even if Shadman were that type of person, there is no actual risk here. Dansburst often tried to convince his viewers that he was purely defending these concepts logically, claiming that people often misunderstood this defense for support. I'm a zoo and MAP right advocate. I have a logical defense of them which many find taboo, but apparently to them supporting something taboo makes you a proponent of it yourself. But isn't this exactly what defense and advocacy stands for? Does Dansburst's passion for defending a group of deranged people not count as being an avid supporter? Dansburst was claiming that these were two separate actions, but in reality they're not. Dansburst tried desperately to seem like an idle defender, but his mask fell off pretty soon the minute he started letting his hidden intentions come to light. In an interview with YouTuber Falgi on a live stream called The Op Block, Dansburst admitted that while he didn't identify as a MAP, he wouldn't be opposed to dating a
You stated to me in DMs you would not be opposed to dating a True or false?
Rare individual
True or false?
came across.
True or false? I have the DM. I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up.
Okay, sure, true.
I'll pull it up.
True.
True.
It is true.
Oh.
When asked why he would feel comfortable doing that, he literally explained that a fraction of children possessed more maturity levels and could therefore date like normal adults.
Why would you feel comfortable dating a...
Because I don't believe that they're subhumans. Most of them have different interests and different maturity levels to me as individuals. But I'm not going to make a judgment about a whole group just based off of the average or even the 99% of that group. I'm not a judgmental person in that way. I judge based off of the individual and not based off of in-groups.
At this point, it was clear that this Brony was a and a map supporter through and through. Dansburst never missed a chance to back up his community with his nonsensical arguments. He tried to level the playing field by claiming that pedophilia is the same as being gay, but Fauci quickly and rightfully dismissed this false concept.
Let's talk about this right now. It's not the same thing as being gay. We can agree with that.
You believe that pedophilia cannot be a sexuality. You believe that it cannot be innate for every single person.
If you want me to be very real, pedophilia is not a sexuality. It is quite...
I believe it can be.
That's okay. Then
there exist individuals for which it is a sex.
Despite losing this argument, Dansburst's gospel of was far from over. In yet another interview with a Kiwi farmer known as Fake Null Davy, Dansburst claimed that a 5-year-old can consent to...
I believe it's severely and very improbable that a 5-year-old is going to give their free expression of indication of desire in regarding act.
And as if that wasn't revolting enough, the Brony also brought forth the idea that exceptional or mature were being by age of consent laws that prevented them from dating adults.
I think that because people are individuals, there exists at least one who is mature enough to make that decision. And so when you implement a law that says all cannot date people over a certain age, you are favoring the 99% and excluding the 1% who is mature enough. And that is a decision that goes against the individual in favor of the average. It's implemented on everyone. And I disagree with that decision because I don't believe that the state should be making decisions preemptively in favor of the average at the detriment of the extremes.
These are the words of someone who'd been claiming to only advocate for the rights of the pedophilic and zoo. Arguing for the revisions of consent laws was his best move, and Dansburst believed in his heart that he was fighting a good cause. The debates were one thing, but the actions that followed were a whole new ballgame. Dansburst actively defended pedophilia online. One time, he reacted to a post about trans pedophiles on Twitter and quickly hopped in their defense. Let's take a look at some of the things he wrote. The modern moralist herd won't stop until all publicly out maps are shamed and stampeded off the internet. They're also going after defenders as well, that is, any pony who doesn't align ideologically with their fallacious ageism. That's right, Dansburst called opposition to pedophilia ageism, as if not wanting adults children is somehow equivalent to discriminating against someone based on how old they are. The false equivalence is genuinely staggering. In the same thread, Dansburst also tried to redefine. He believed that the word was used wrongly to give attracted persons a wrong name. These people say the was doing what? Being platonic friends. This buzzword's used so often, it loses its meaning and gets watered down to acted somewhat creepily, like gaslighting being watered down into disagreeing/lying to me. This is such predatory rhetoric, a poor and desperate attempt to justify animal. Dansburst was trying to redefine a manipulative pattern of exploiting children, saying that it wasn't as grave a definition as people thought it was. This sounds like a surefire move a predator would make, trying to minimize controversial terms to make their behavior seem innocent. Dansburst was on a self-ordained mission to defend and anyone who countered him was labeled a fake progressive or a conformist. Dansburst believed that you had to challenge every societal norm to be a proper progressive, even if it was and zoo. And here's where things became a lot more crazier. Dansburst's defense moved from disgusting to next-level lunacy when his argument became centered around the cartoon character, Sonic the Hedgehog, in what has to be one of the most accidentally hilarious moments in this whole saga. Someone on Twitter posted an image of Sonic the Hedgehog with the caption, stating that all pedophiles should be beaten to death. And guess what? Dansburst absolutely lost his mind over this. He accused the person of perverting his childhood with a political agenda. I don't even have any words for this. You're perverting one of my childhood and current icons to serve as a mouthpiece for your political agenda. You. In that same spirit of anger, he stated that Sonic would never ever support those kinds of politics, and that this must be Metal Sonic impersonating him. This is Metal Sonic masquerading as Sonic. When someone makes an image like that, they're making Sonic into a political mouthpiece. Dansburst was genuinely upset that someone would dare to suggest that Sonic the Hedgehog doesn't support pedophile rights. The irony here is that Dansburst clearly isn't even a real Sonic fan, because anyone who watched The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog would know that Sonic literally issues a warning to kids about reporting anyone who touches their bodies inappropriately.
Kids, there's nothing more cool than being hugged by someone you like. But if someone tries to touch you in a place or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's no good. It's your body. No one has the right to touch you if you don't want them to. So what do? First, you say no. Then, you get out of there. Most important, you gotta tell someone you trust. Like your parents, your teacher, a police...
This proves that Sonic is explicitly anti-pedophile and would definitely not defend Dansburst the same way he'd just done because of a little poster. So far, Dansburst has continued to crash and burn in his sick agenda. First, he tried to set himself apart and like he was an advocate for the who was only observing from the outside. But with that same mouth of his, he still managed to out himself as a pedophile. This show of character reveals just how sick in the head he truly is. And this wasn't even the most disgusting part yet. You see, Dansburst wasn't just defending the abstract concept of maps. He was actively using language and terminology that revealed his own predatory mindset. He often referred to children as foals, a term used to describe baby horses. This reasoning can be interpreted as a deliberate linguistic choice that allows him to discuss children in a context while maintaining plausible deniability. In one Twitter exchange, someone posted My Little Pony fan art, and Dansburst responded, "What kind of a reply is that? Did you type it with one hand? I don't understand why you think you can do anything about my full Equestria doesn't have the same draconian age of consent laws in this dimension's human world. You'd know if you'd portaled there like I have." Let's unpack this horrifying statement. Dansburst is claiming to have a full that is, a of children. He's stating that in Equestria, the fictional world of My Little Pony, there are no age of consent laws, and he's claiming that he has traveled there through portals, which could mean that in his delusional mind, he's actually acted on these fantasies. Now, is Dansburst literally claiming to have traveled to a cartoon dimension and had with cartoon children? Probably not, because even he knows that's insane. But what he's doing is using this fictional framework to express his real desires while maintaining a layer of it's just roleplay as protection. Dansburst's unsettling pattern of behavior extended to his Discord server, Planet Kitten Island, where he created what he called a safe space free from tyrannical censorship. In reality, this meant allowing self-identified maps to interact freely with under his non-aggression principle policy. Dansburst believed he was providing a safe zone for pedophiles when he was essentially feeding them to the on the platform. The evidence was mounting, the controversies were escalating, and Dansburst's carefully constructed facade of being an intellectual defender of the marginalized was taking a big blow to the gut. What started as a bizarre pony roleplay had evolved into something far more sinister, and the internet was watching, archiving, and preparing to bring it all crashing down. With more publicity came curiosity. Who exactly was Herbert Kenneth Wachaka, and what kind of background produces someone as vile as him? That's where our story takes an even darker turn, because everything we've covered so far, the Zoo video, the advocacy, the victim blaming, the dehumanizing language, that was just the foundation. The real horror was still to come. Herbert Kenneth Wachaka, better known as Timothy or just Dansburst to those unfortunate enough to know him, is somehow even worse than what we've come to know him to be. He was born on January 11, 2005 to Herbert Cipriano Wachaka and Gladys Maribel Flores in Mecklenburg, North Carolina. His parents had immigrated to the United States from Peru, presumably hoping for a better life for their children. Dansburst has multiple sisters, and by all accounts his early life seemed normal and even promising. Dansburst attended JFK School in Patterson for middle school, where he was apparently the top reader. He wasn't just a good reader, he set a new world record for being the top reader. For high school, he went to Clifton High School, and this is where things get interesting. Dansburst had a strong academic prowess. He was a math prodigy who amassed the highest score in math league contests. He also participated in track and field events. There's video footage of him running in the junior varsity boys 5K.
There you go, through the line, Herbert. Nice.
Dansburst was truly a stellar kid with a flair for competition. After graduating high school, he attended Rutgers University, where he majored in physics. There, he participated in competitive coding competitions in 2024, and even named his competitive coding team Code Horses, which was a sign of his pony addiction amidst his intelligence. Dansburst's earliest known online activity can be traced back to December 2015, when he was about 10 years old, making custom Pokemon cards of Donald Trump and Barack Obama. It was quirky, sure, but was relatively for a kid to do. So what happened? How did this promising young student with a bright future turn into someone who took pride in making low-quality YouTube videos defending the indefensible? Despite all these successes, Dansburst became an unemployed bum who was living with his mother somewhere in New Jersey. This former physics genius became what the internet calls a NEET, which is translation for a person who is. Not an education, an employment, or training. And the crazy part is that Dansburst is proud of his status as a NEET. The only bummer for him is not that he's unemployed, it's that he barely has privacy while leeching off his mother. For Dansburst, Dansburst not being able to conveniently create his deranged content is far worse than being a NEET in 2024. In one of his tweets, he likened his lack of privacy to a Friday Night at Freddy's experience, FNAF. Hoofing off as a grown NEET is FNAF, 4 family member animatronics, 2 entrances to the room on both sides, and worst of all, my security cameras get disabled when the internet slows. How am I ever going to make it to 6 a.m.? This is the major concern of someone who had the credentials to grow into a responsible member of society. His inability to argue about and under his mother's roof is a factor worth admitting to online. It's unclear why Dansburst was shamelessly embarrassing himself in such a manner, or why he never followed the clean academic future he'd created for himself. A huge chunk of the reason for this is his My Little Pony obsession. We have one image of him with his father on a My Little Pony ride from 2009. Well, it turns out that his childhood fantasy became too much of a devotion for his brain to bear, and maybe his autism had something to do with his... Regardless, these are not true reasons for someone to argue about moral and social norms. Dansburst was prideful. He had this unshakable belief that he was an intellectual titan while everyone else was beneath him. This superiority complex made it extremely difficult for him to maintain intimate relationships in his life. A close example was his transgender ex-girlfriend named Michael or Alyssa Rogers. Through their relationship, we get to see how dysfunctional Dansburst is in real life, not just online. Michael Goldstein Rogers, whose chosen name is Elisa Michelle Goldstein, is an autistic transgender, known mainly by his online handle Furry Gamers Against Trump. Like Dansburst, Michael also claims to have high-functioning autism, and he's also a jolly good friend of minor attracted persons who clamors for the end of the age of consent. Michael is just the same as Dansburst, only that he owns up to his public side than Dansburst, but that's not the only disturbing detail about the pair. There are unconfirmed speculations that Dansburst might have been by Michael, who's almost 10 years older than him. Dansburst had once claimed that he's known Michael for years, and he'd funded his transition. If that's the case, then it could mean that Michael had met Dansburst when he was possibly still in high school. Whatever the case may be, the two of them stood out as very awkward and deranged people of society. Their relationship eventually blew up on the internet thanks to a now-deleted video from Michael's YouTube channel. The video, titled Me and My Boyfriend Fighting, was uploaded without Dansburst's knowledge, and captured the two of them having an absolutely unhinged argument. And guess what they were fighting about? A stolen Snickers bar.
Oh, we're talking about my Snickers bar.
Wait, what are you saying, Timmy?
Michael, you took my Snickers bar. You think I didn't see you think I don't see the fucking shit you do every day after Halloween?
The more you listen to them, the more you'd think it's a joke. Dansburst started accusing Michael of not working to earn the Snicker bar since he was on disability, and Michael responded by claiming that he deserved to be on disability because he had a high-functioning autism. Dansburst soon devolved into a screaming mess, saying that he would break up with Michael and himself.
This is why I'm never gonna be with you again. I'm gonna break up with you and you're never gonna see me again. I'm gonna so Michael, and you will be the one you will pay.
The video eventually ends with a lot of shouting, cursing, and thrashing sounds, and you can tell it's a deranged fest going on. This is the kind of relationship that should have ended immediately, but instead, it dragged on, with both parties exposing their pathetic selves online. commented on the video on Michael's channel, saying that it showed the telltale signs of an abusive relationship. Then in yet another poorly constructed writing, he said, "When a relationship is about love, open your heart and be loving, not hateful like the Republicans we both despise." Dansburst had just threatened to commit suicide over candy, only to show up on the internet, preaching love. The pair eventually broke up, with Michael updating the world through his YouTube channel. "He is my ex now. I do not love you anymore. It is over." It might be safe to say that the end of their relationship was a good thing. 2 heads are better than 1. However, in Michael and Dansburst's case, 2 of their heads weren't even up to 1. It's clear that Dansburst's mental strength was weak, despite the well of knowledge he possessed in high school and college. He was obsessed with the kids' show My Little Pony, and had built his entire personality around Dansburst, which is based on the character Sunburst. He shifted this obsession to his YouTube channel, and this was where everything went out of control for him. Dansburst created this channel sometime in 2021 under the name Bruh. Then around early 2023, he rebranded it into Dansburst Studio. His channel's main series was Dansburst Debunks, where he attempted to debunk what he called misconceptions about taboo topics. The arguments on already offer a glimpse of the nature of the videos he posted on his channel. By setting up his account and recording controversial debates, Dansburst practically drew attention to himself, and this attention came from the one and only forum dedicated to exposing internet lolcows like himself, Kiwi Farms. Now, most people who end up on Kiwi Farms try to ignore it. They go dark. They delete their accounts or try to move on with their lives. However, not Dansburst. Instead of helping his case by staying quiet, Dansburst decided to actively engage with the website dedicated to documenting and mocking him. The original Kiwi Farms thread that was designed for Dansburst wasn't even about him in the first place. It was a mass debate thread that was created as a containment thread for a user called Foster U. Foster U, whose real name is Fabian Guerrero, was a Mexican brony who was also Dansburst's friend. He was added to the easy-to-track username Hall of Shame on Kiwi due to his unusual love for ponies, his desire to play the game, amongst many other controversial intrigues. Dansburst joined Kiwi Farms on July 26, 2024, and quickly went on the defensive about his content. He stated that his style isn't for everyone, and Kiwi farmers were basically defacing his videos in a way that he never liked at all. Then he added that everyone was focused on feelings rather than facts, and this was why they were Trump supporters. Sure, I'm shouting and screaming a lot, but I'm also making an actual logical argument that you guys don't care to listen to. You guys only care about quick sound bites, feeling over facts. That's why you find Trump so with his statistically devoid, witty one-liners. This was Dansburst's epic introduction into the forum. He spent his good time defending his fellow deranged bronies, who also possessed similar beliefs on Zoof and the age of consent. Among these people was his avid supporter and friend, Peppermint Swirl, also known as William Thorncannon, is another brony who once hyped Dansburst's Zoophilia video in the comments. At this point, Dansburst had already made it crystal clear who his circle of friends were. They banded together and even made a video on Foster U's YouTube channel, a video they titled Antifa Party, who egg crust. By virtue of his ties to this union, Dansburst soon found himself in hot water in the Kiwi Farms community. They created his own thread, where Dansburst himself proceeded to argue with anyone and everyone who would engage with him. He would attempt to justify every single accusation, piece of evidence, and on every screenshot. He couldn't help himself. It was around this time that he uploaded his argument on his YouTube channel, and not only did it leave it at that, Dansburst also made a public announcement on the forum, telling everyone to watch it. To all haters and mistaken fans who thought I had turned tail and ran, just because of some mean comments, put a hoof in your mouth and suck it. He also threw a foreshadowing of an upcoming video project he called the Kiwi Farms Exposal, where he intended to shame the forum for insulting his like-minded people. Dansburst was on a self-ordained mission to help his community. He eventually released a video titled Kiwi Farms is Lying About Me. In the video, Dansburst basically debunked everything that had been written on the thread, and insinuated that the members of the forum were jobless for creating the long thread in the first place.
First of all, how pathetic it is that they've spent 14 entire pages chronicling me, just a small part-time YouTuber who hasn't even gone full-time yet, just because they think that my quote-unquote behavior is quote-unquote so abnormal, they say.
The video was laughable, but it didn't change anything. The thread still remains to this day, and it's even more comprehensive than it was at the point of Dansburst making his video. The day eventually came when Dansburst lost his voice on the platform. You may be wondering how this happened? Well, Dansburst got banned from Kiwi Farms. This was a website notorious for having essentially no rules and allowing pretty much anything to be discussed. But Dansburst was banned on August 14th, 2024, less than 3 weeks after joining for being a file. On that same day, Dansburst tweeted about it saying, "Just today I was banned on the KF for some reason. Was it my Sonic tweet? Being a gay rights supporter doesn't make you gay. Same for MAP rights." As usual, his words were as tone-deaf and irritating as ever. Instead of taking this unprecedented ban as a reason to self-reflect, he threw himself a pity party and tried comparing his support for MAP rights to his support for gay rights. Kiwi Farms was only one case. Thanks to the same controversial behavior, Dansburst was banned from another secure website known as Ponytown. Ponytown is a video game where My Little Pony fans create pony characters, build houses, and socialize. It's generally considered a pretty wholesome space for fans of the show. But as usual, Dansburst polluted it by admitting that he tried to befriend foals, which is his term for children. And it only got worse afterwards. In Discord messages, Dansburst discussed how he was into virtual and called Ponytown his hunting grounds. Someone had commented that they didn't have the mental or physical strength to someone, to which Dansburst responded, "Start virtually. Virtual play games that stimulate the experience. A game of ponies building a town. These were my first hunting grounds." The Ponytown community quickly caught on that Dansburst was a threat to their free space, so he was banned before he knew it. As usual, the Brony didn't take this reception lightly. He took to his Twitter and called everyone involved in his downfall pro-shippers to bigotry. This mass cancellation on websites that allow extensive freedom revealed just how impossible it was for Dansburst to be an accommodating person. He didn't do well in school, relationships, and even family. And now, his own online community threw him to wolves. Even the wolves in Kiwi Farms didn't want him. He was a discarded specimen in all corners except his own social media accounts. However, his safe spaces wouldn't hold up for long because the next Dansburst exposure would ruin him for life. This exposure began through his leaked discussions on Discord. It was on the platform that he'd recommended My Little Pony to someone for virtual, and it was still on this same Discord that evidence of him potentially 14-year-old emerged. The girl's name was Sarah, and she'd once claimed to be 14 years old. Her case only raised questions when Dansburst entered the scene. In one chat room, Sarah claimed that she was going to run away from home to Dansburst's house and her parents wouldn't know about it. And Dansburst gladly accepted, calling it a playdate. There were speculations that Sarah might have been in her 20s, but that's besides the point. The point is, Dansburst was open to the idea of welcoming a runaway minor. This just proved how horrible and irresponsible he truly was as a person. Eventually, he met his complete downfall when the members of Kiwi Farms made contact with his supposed girlfriend named Madeline Ringer. Madeline, who was also known online as Aimu_Fuso, had grown tired of Dansburst's obsession with her, and was also disturbed by his principles. So she handed over everything she had on him, including screenshots of their Discord messages and Dansburst's real pictures. It's from this point that the doxing began. Everything we've discussed concerning Herbert Huchaka till this point was a product of the information Kiwi Farms gained. Within days, Dansburst's entire life was laid bare, from his birth date to his academic achievements. With his information now made public, Dansburst had no choice but to run away. On December 16, 2024, every single Dansburst Studios account vanished. YouTube, Twitter, Discord, all were deleted within hours of the docs going public. His friends attempted desperate damage control. Foster U raged against Madeline on Discord, calling her a traitor for exposing Dansburst. Some dumb called Imufuso doxed Dansburst because some also dumb whore from college asked her to. This attack would inadvertently confirm that Herbert was truly Dansburst. Now that the world could finally place a face to the crackhead who advocated for there was no hiding place for Dansburst anymore, so he banished himself into obscurity and left a happy and content internet community in his wake. Now the world has been spared one more degenerate who loved arguing about dogs while using condoms. As of the time of making this video, Dansburst has not returned to the internet. There are no new accounts, no statements, and no attempts to salvage his reputation. The man who claimed to have had good operational security had simply ceased to exist online. The internet can only wait and wonder if this is the end for him. And if he does return, will he be as childish and degenerate as he once was?
We've been together for, what is it, about 5 years now? Yeah, that sounds about right. It's been about 5 years, a little over.
Do you ever look at some people on social media and stop to wonder how and why they even exist in the first place? Well, this brony is a clear example. This is Matt Beard, known across the various degenerate corners of the internet as Jin 1515 or Skippy.
Hey there everyone, Skippy here.
On the surface, he's a lonely, introverted young man from Minnesota who fell deeply in love with a unicorn named Twilight Sparkle, a cartoon character from the children's show My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. But underneath that surface, he's a menace on the internet offender list.
If you can't resist looking at something that you don't like, then use NetNanny or whatever popular parental control software is being used for browsers these days.
Matt channeled his emotional attachment into this handmade plushie he purchased at auction for either $400 or $600. The figure is contested. Matt took her to restaurants, museums, and coffee shops. He celebrated her birthday and even married her over Skype in the Universal Life Church. But this disturbing marriage isn't all there is to Matt's name. Over the years, Matt has accumulated a trail of strange controversies. He launched harassment campaigns against artists who drew suggestive fan art of his wife.
People are freaking out about it because, oh, that's the guy who married Twilight Sparkle and wrote that letter to the adult pony artist saying, "Don't draw nasty pictures of my wife."
He performs deeply unsanitary acts with plushies, and he documented several of them publicly with pride. And that's not all. Matt has made posts about drinking his urine, substance use. He was involved in leaked private conversations where he admitted to liking Nazi uniforms. In recent years, Matt moved his weird obsession from My Little Pony to another kiddies show called Paw Patrol, and this time, he developed a strong, intimate attraction to Rocky, the rescue dog. This isn't a case of someone living an unconventional lifestyle among bronies. This is a story of mental illness on full display on the internet. Who's Matt Beard, and what is his documented degeneracy about? Get ready as we unravel the story behind this brony who had the average intelligence to marry a plushie. Now, before we get started, let's brush through the basic idea of bronies. The term is used to classify adult men who are fans of the My Little Pony cartoon. This is where Matt's fall to internet degeneracy began. He's a brony just like the rest. However, his own story started with a doll he purchased. On May 5th, 2012, a DeviantArt user named Karazu Nazumi posted images of a handmade Twilight Sparkle plushie she had just finished crafting. The plushie was 18 inches tall, painstakingly detailed, and remarkably faithful to the character's design from the show. Nazumi posted it with the intention of selling it. The response was immediate. Commenters flooded in with money offers, and it became so overwhelming that she decided to take the listing to eBay and let the bidding speak for itself. The auction ran for 2 days, and when it ended, the winning bid sat at $600. Who was the lucky winner? A user named Jin. Afterwards, Matt left a comment under Nozumi's original DeviantArt post, which in retrospect reads as one of the most unintentionally ominous things ever written in a comment section. He said it had taken every penny he had, plus money he had to borrow to buy the plushie. He also said that she was his, and he would give her a good home and post excessive pictures of her doing various fun activities. Karasu Nozumi replied warmly, "I'd love to make a plush for you someday. You're a pleasure to talk to, and thank you so much. I can't wait to see the pictures of Twilight in her new home. Love her to bits for me." She was genuinely pleased that her creation had found a devoted owner. Most people on her page buy her ponies for their kids. After all, they are fun plushies that kids can ride and play with. For others, the ponies were like pillows that they could hug and squeeze for sounds. Like this one where a commenter asked what Twilight Sparkle says when squeezed. Nozumi responded, "She actually sings the Winter Roundup song." Karasu Nozumi probably thought that the pony would function in one of these ways. However, she had no idea what would become of Twilight Sparkle plushie after the auction. Over the next several months, the My Little Pony fan community witnessed an outpouring of content, unlike anything they had ever seen before. Matt photographed himself with the plushie at home. Then he took her everywhere, from restaurants to museums, shopping trips, and even brony meetups. Matt introduced her as his partner and referred to her not as a toy or a prop, but as the real Twilight Sparkle, the one from the show. For him, the plushie was her physical form in the material world. He wrote at extraordinary length about his feelings for her, about the emotional intimacy they shared, about the conversations he had with her in which he heard her responses as a voice in the back of his mind. He was, by every measure of his own documentation, completely and sincerely in love with the stuffed animal, and he was determined to tell the world about it. Within certain brony communities, particularly the more adult-oriented spaces, Matt found a reception. Initially, it wasn't an outright rejection. Some people were supportive, others were curious. Matt saw a confidence boost in this positive attention. So he pushed further and further into explicit territory. He found his way to a forum called Red Light Ponyville, an adult roleplay site centered on My Little Pony. He continued to post about his wife and his dedication that earned him followers, regular engagement, and eventually a staff position as a moderator. In his capacity as moderator, Matt tried to control forum activities to his favor, and part of what he wanted to keep in check was how members in and out of the forums treated Twilight Sparkle. He wanted people to respect the pony because she was more than a cartoon character. She was someone he had formed an emotional connection with. So when one DeviantArt artist named Kevin Sano drew explicit images of Twilight Sparkle, Matt lost it. Kevin Sano was known primarily for drawing explicit fan art of My Little Pony characters, including Twilight Sparkle. These pieces are typically called clop art. Now, for the blissfully unaware, clopping is a term used in the brony community to describe self-gratification with My Little Pony characters. To most people in the fandom, this was normal, and Kevin Sano's art was truly divine. However, to Matt, it was a slap to his face. In his own mind, he was engaged to Twilight Sparkle. For him, an artist drawing her in explicit situations wasn't creating fan art, but was violating his fiancée. So, in order to express his displeasure with the situation, Matt wrote Kevin Sano a message. The message was long, earnest, and completely unhinged, yet sincere. He introduced himself as Twilight's fiancé, explained that they were planning to be married the following summer, and asked Kevin to please stop having his friends draw explicit art of Twilight. He also added that he had found a chapel where they could get married. Twilight is my fiancé, and we're planning to get married next June, or July should everything go as planned financially speaking. I've actually found a wedding chapel that will let me marry someone that most people would consider a fictional character. Matt went on to describe his daily life with the plushie. He spoke about how they slept together and hung out for dinners at restaurants, coffee shop visits, and social activities with friends. He also made it abundantly clear that he viewed all of this not as a fantasy or a coping mechanism, but as a genuine, committed, monogamous relationship. Matt acknowledged that Kevin probably thought he was either completely crazy or just messing with him, and asked him to hear him out anyway. But at the end of the day, Kevin did not stop drawing Twilight. Nothing in that letter held weight, except eventually the part about him and Twilight's marriage. It didn't happen in summer of the next year like he anticipated, but in September of 2013, and Matt even documented it on his Facebook page. He wrote, "Today, Twilight and I did the most spontaneous thing either of us have ever done in our entire lives. We got married." Matt's initial plan was to hold it off until he was financially capable of affording to rent a tuxedo, catering in the rings, but his undying love for Twilight was so strong that he couldn't wait any longer. Not only that, but Twilight herself couldn't wait to become his bride. In his words, Matt said, "Twi once again, as she had done several times before, reminded me that she didn't care about having a fancy dress or a big event with a lot of fanfare." So since they were both on the same page, he contacted the minister over Skype. This minister advised them that they could get married over webcam instead of traveling all the way from his home country, Sweden, to America for the wedding. According to him, the universal Life Church allowed them to get married digitally. Right then and there, Matt claimed that he held Twilight's hooves. Both of them exchanged vows and kissed. Matt put his wedding ring on her horn, and the wedding was finally concluded. Now that they were man and wife, Matt's overprotectiveness skyrocketed. He believed he had every right to protect Twilight from people who didn't respect her online. Kevin Sano's case didn't end in his favor. He continued to draw more suggestive images of humanoid My Little Pony characters. Matt didn't make any further attempts to stop it. His letter hadn't served the purpose it was intended, but on the other hand, it did reveal something about Jin. It exposed his real name. When a user named Saul Chavez dropped the link to the letter in a public post, Matt reacted to it with an account that bore his real name, Matt Beard. He said, "Somehow I always knew that note I sent to Kevin Zano what seems like ages ago was going to come back to bite me in the rear one day." Matt also acknowledged that he was not proud of it. Unfortunately, this letter would be one of remotely normal things he should have been proud of, because in retrospect, what he did in the months after sending this letter would be the most embarrassing thing ever recorded in internet history. The Kevin Sano letter was indeed embarrassing, but what came next was something worse. Matt banned members whenever they made him feel as though Twilight Sparkle was disrespected. He did this a number of times, banning people without proper ruling. Then the last straw finally came with this particular incident. A user on Red Light Ponyville named Mr. Nameless commissioned an explicit drawing of Twilight Sparkle. Matt's response was not a strongly worded post or even a moderator warning. He didn't even write a lengthy letter like the one he sent to Kevin Zano. Instead, he resorted to trickery. Matt forged messages attributed to Mr. Nameless and manufactured what appeared to be evidence of hate speech posted by the user on the forum. Matt revealed these fake messages and claimed that Mr. Nameless was an enemy of the community. Because he was a moderator with an established reputation and the trust of the community, people believed him. Mr. Nameless was permanently banned for something he had never done. The fraud unraveled days later when an administrator reviewed the evidence carefully and realized it had been manufactured. A public post went up documenting what Matt had done and banning him from the forum he had helped run. Jin is now permanently banned. I know that this is coming as a shock to lots of you, and as a finally it's happening to others. The reasoning that Jin is getting a permaban is because of all the constant rule breaking he does. Just like that, the man who had positioned himself as the righteous protector of his beloved was exposed as someone willing to destroy a similarly deranged person's reputation over a piece of commissioned art, over a drawing of a cartoon horse. Matt and several friends left and migrated to a nearly dead forum called Los Pegasus, where they proclaimed they would build something new. He sent an open invitation on his DeviantArt page on July 30th, 2015 for all My Little Pony fans to join. The rules of this new space were written to insulate Matt from any criticism whatsoever. Users were prohibited from saying anything negative about him or Twilight. Someone was banned simply for referencing an episode of My Little Pony in which Twilight was perceived to have behaved selfishly. Can you believe that? People were getting banned from this forum for implying that a cartoon pony had a bad day. And here's the crazy part. Matt wasn't the only active person on these forums. His wife, Twilight, also spoke at times. Here's an example of him and Twilight talking about Matt's love for seeing Twilight. This is how most of their conversations online are framed. Matt would write as he usually did, then add conversation panels of Twilight as if it were a play script. In his mind's eye, he wasn't the one writing on behalf of Twilight. It was Twilight herself who was doing that. This is the level of demented no one should strive to accomplish. Matt and his wife continued their forum escapades for a while, but unfortunately, it didn't last long. The foundations of the forum began to shake. Members drifted away, activities dried up, and the forum itself withered into digital non-existence. These events, from the Mr. Nameless fabrication to the last Pegasus implosion, are worth dwelling on before moving into Matt's backstory, because they establish something important. Matt is someone with a deep-seated mental problem. So who is this person before the plushie, before the forums, before any of it? To answer that, we have to go back further. The origin of Matt's fixation is not, at its core, or a funny story. It begins in February 2012, during what he has described as the worst depressive episode of his life. This account exists today in Matt's journal, which is documented on Kiwi farms for the world to see. According to Matt, he woke up sad every day. He spent his days sad and went to bed sad. There was a constant emptiness in his chest, a loss of appetite, a complete disappearance of the drive that had defined his adolescence and early adulthood. He had no energy and felt nothing but sadness and despair. The only thing in his life that could really lift him above that fog, even briefly, was watching My Little Pony. Friendship is magic. Matt would watch it for hours at a stretch. It made him smile, it made him laugh. But when it was over, the fog would return. This went on for roughly a month before something changed. The depression began slowly to lift, and the first real emotion that resurfaced in its wake was not happiness or relief, but love. Romantic love, directed specifically at Twilight Sparkle. Matt Matt recognized the feeling immediately because he had experienced it before, years earlier, in a relationship with a real person that had lasted nearly 8 years. Matt claimed that he tried to dismiss it, but it didn't pass and it only intensified. What made his story particularly strange was how much self-reflection his love for Twilight Sparkle caused. Matt admitted in his long journal that he struggled to believe that he was attracted to a female cartoon pony. This is because for the previous 14 years since puberty, Matt had considered himself gay. His attraction had been exclusively toward men. Matt later detailed a bit of his past in this respect. He expressed that he had always known that he was attracted to both stuffed animals and boys after hitting puberty. For 20 years, intimacy with plushies were the only things that felt right. I've always known I love plushies and that with them feels super satisfying. But humans have been another story. Matt disclosed that he had been intimate with over 20 humans, most were men, and a few were transgender men and women, but none of these romantic connections were fulfilling. I've had a bit over 20 human partners over the years, most cis males, but a few trans guys and girls as well, but none ever felt quite right. He had always been drawn to male plushies and humans, and now, without warning, he found himself experiencing what felt unmistakably like romantic and attraction toward a female character who happened to be an animated cartoon pony. This situation caused Matt to grapple with a complete reorientation of everything he thought he understood about himself. If the case weren't about a mentally sick individual, it would have been comical. This isn't satire or performance art. This was a grown man absolutely emotionally devastated because of a fictional character. Matt described nights he spent crying himself to sleep because he wanted to hold Twilight Sparkle but couldn't. He pined for her, wanted to hold, kiss, and tell her he loved her, but he couldn't do any of that. Matt wrote as if he was in so much pain. If you were not paying attention, you'd think these were words cropped from a scene in Titanic, but they were only for a purple pony. This plushie represented the solution to all his emotional problems, and this need is what led to the degenerate Brony we have on the internet today. A Brony who's in desperate need of real therapy, because this particular living situation is not normal at all. After looking at this little entry, there's one necessary question that needs to be answered. What exactly snapped in this man's mind to make him live like this? Matt's emotional state in 2012 is one piece of the picture, but the complete picture will only be known when we consider his background. Sadly, this will prove to be a difficult task. You see, there's very little documented information about his family or his childhood. What can be pieced together from scattered journal entries and online posts fixes Matt as a young man who struggled profoundly with being a normal kid. One time in 2018, he admitted that he had been a furry since he was 12, and this has lasted for 21 years. In another journal, he also disclosed that he had first yiffed, which is Brony for to a plush in 1998 when he was 13 years old. Doing the math, this timeline would place Matt's birth year around 1985, and this inevitably means that he's 40 years old in this year, 2026. After piecing this one together, we also discovered another flaw in Matt's past. It's possible that he experienced instability at home because he rarely talks about his family. In fact, he talks more about Twilight's family than his own. According to him, Twilight teleports from the real world to Equestria, her home planet, to visit her pony friends. She does this every week or two, and she makes the trip to Canterlot to visit her parents and brother. In his journal on DeviantArt, he explained that Twilight would teleport out of her body for bathroom visits, and this out-of-body form is how she travels to her home planet. For reference, this is what Twilight looks like in Matt's head. He can go at lengths to talk about Twilight's side of the family. Even when a user on DeviantArt asked who he'd pick between his family and Twilight, he picked his wife, saying that she comes first before anything else in his life. His own family isn't a matter of priority to him. In fact, Matt has opened up more about his online communities than his personal relationships. He mostly urges people to spend festivities with friends rather than family. This offers an insight into how he regards relationships and connections. Friends and community came first. Although he once stated that his family didn't care much about his relationship with Twilight, he mentioned this in response to an ask made on his now deactivated Tumblr account. He said initially they had reacted by saying that it was weird, but his family's stance was mostly accommodating. According to Matt, his family had given this remark: "We don't care if it's weird because it makes you happy and it's not hurting anyone, and we support your happiness." This piece of information is as far as his personal history goes. From the little sourced findings on the internet, it's discovered that Matt didn't live in his family home for long. He had shared a spare bedroom at a friend's apartment when he was in his mid to late 20s. It's possible that this development came after a period of estrangement from his family, though there is no known information online to corroborate this account. Even his claim of them being supportive is left to contemplation, because what family would let their own flesh and blood spiral into degeneracy like this? Matt is not only mentally troubled, he also has a complicated medical history. Matt had been classified as disabled, qualifying him for welfare income, due to a list of conditions that included Graves' disease, lung problems, and chronic stomach issues. The lung problems probably stem from substance use. There are photographs from his online profiles to prove this, photographs which show his plushy position next to a hookah. He even wrote on DeviantArt about how he influenced Twilight into having her first taste of shisha. The stomach sickness has lasted since he was a kid. Matt explained that he dropped out of college for medical reasons, and bowel problems were one of them. In his words, he had chronic ulcers that would make him feel nauseated for 1 or 2 days a week on average, and he he would have to lay down for a few hours until it passes. Going through these issues made it hard for him to get jobs and maintain a regular class schedule. I've always had stomach problems since I was a kid, irritable bowel syndrome and stomach ulcers mainly. As you might imagine, that makes holding down a job or keeping up with a regular class schedule relatively impossible. It could have also worsened because of his habit of drinking urine in his adult years. And yes, this is something admitted in his tweets along with some other disgusting habits like eating his mess and not bathing for weeks. Matt's poor eating habits would eventually lead to the removal in November 2023. In a post he made, he mentioned how regular consumption of pizza and fried noodles had been a direct consequence. Moving away from his feeding habits, let's take a look at his spending habits and why this factor could have contributed to the estrangement with his family. Financially, Matt was a disaster. His welfare income and student loans are only enough to cover basic living expenses in a situation where his rent was covered by a friend's generosity. And what does Matt spend his money on? Well, if you guessed his wife, then you're not wrong. Matt has spent money on a custom arcade machine commissioned to match his plushie's dimensions. He has bought Twilight Sparkle merchandise to the point that his bedroom looks as if My Little Pony vomited in it. Matt is an adult with the habits of a mentally sick kid. However, these habits take on a new dimension when you take a look at the sick and disturbing hobbies he indulges in with his stuffed animals. His marriage to Twilight, for instance, reveals some shocking aspects of Matt's deepest and darkest habits. When he wrote about his depressive episodes, Matt always talked about how he barely had sexual urges until Twilight came into the picture. Well, he wasn't lying, because after deep diving into intimate details about their bedroom relationship, what we found was thoroughly disgusting. First off, Matt had posted that he and Twilight often exchanged gifts, specifically toys. But a stuffed doll to buying him a toy is the least disturbing detail Matt has ever revealed online. Here's the most disgusting thing Matt has posted online about his intimacy with his wife. And it's not the disciplinary variety. Matt's version doesn't involve pain, domination, or submission because none of them like it. Instead, it involves restraints which are applied gently and lovingly. Then this is followed by what he termed her in various wonderful ways. There are photographs documenting this arrangement, and these images are very inappropriate. Some feature images of his collection of toys, and the most striking of them were the ones with a Matt striking some poses with Twilight. In 2017, Matt posted a video where he admitted that he hadn't intended for the images to surface publicly. They were meant to be for the members of plush.yif.
We're here because, well, someone has been taking our pictures and possibly videos, I'm not really too sure about that, from plush.yif and reposting them elsewhere online.
But what grown man would take explicit pictures of themselves with a stuffed animal, share in a forum, and expect them to stay hidden? Since the images were already public material, Matt shed light on the rationale behind it. According to him, he and Twilight operated under a prince and princess arrangement. He found a master and pet dynamic to be distasteful, and therefore adopted this roleplay session, where he called Twilight his little princess. It seems much more loving, and Twi really likes it when I call her my little princess while I'm her. She's never a naughty little filly and I never punish her. She's always my good girl. Matt also acknowledged how hypocritical he was by posting such images online. He recalled how he had publicly berated Kevin Sano for sharing clop art of a Twilight Sparkle. He had positioned himself as the defender of her dignity, but here he was, photographing with her in restraints and not safe for work shoots. Matt's defense was context. What Kevin Sano's friends had drawn was degrading, but what he and Twilight shared was sharing. And he also admitted that Twilight loves it when people goon to her. It's sickening, no matter how you look at it, because Matt was using Twilight to defend himself under the notion that they were married and could therefore post all sorts online. And here's the crazy part. These photos of him and Twilight weren't the only disgusting ones online. Matt also posted pictures of joint bed sessions with his other Brony friends. This is only a glimpse of the kind of degenerate content you can expect from Matt, and the crazy part is that it only got worse in the years following 2015. After Matt's ban from Red Light Ponyville and the collapse of Las Pegasus, he migrated to a broader social media landscape, primarily X, under the username Skippy B Coyote, and with this migration came a new and unsettling version of Jin1515. His all-consuming devotion to Twilight Sparkle, which had been his biggest obsession, suddenly began to fade, and in its place grew something new, Matt's fixation on a character from Paw Patrol named Rocky. Rocky is a small dog in Paw Patrol, a kid's show about a group of animals who go on rescue missions. This television program airs on networks like Nickelodeon and TVO, so you can tell right off the bat that it's designed for kids, but a 40-year-old like Matt latched onto it and formed a deep obsession for Rocky. He once tweeted about Rocky's bedroom eyes. That's how down bad he was for this cartoon character, and Rocky would even go on to be the object he cheats on Twilight with. The transition happened gradually, somewhere between 2015 and 2018. His new obsession quickly consumed the other, and like he did with Twilight, it intensified when he bought a Rocky plushie. Now this is where the story begins to get weird and disturbing. Matt began posting about Rocky, and what he posted were videos meant for an X-rated site for degenerate bronies. These sessions always escalated into full-blown intimacy, and Matt captured everything on camera. This is what Matt did and thought to share on the internet. His picture of his Rocky plushie after these sessions were messy. They revealed Rocky covered in Matt's dried juices. This is similar to what he had done with Twilight, but this was much worse. And this habit would go on for years. Matt would perform these disgusting acts on Rocky and would not wash the plushie. It got so bad that Rocky began to look like it had poop stains smeared around his face. Then out of the blue, Matt began to do the same to other plushies. They weren't from Paw Patrol, however. Instead, these were dog plushies. German Shepherds and other big-sized looking dogs, all covered in his dried matter. Matt had made a habit out of sleeping with these plushies and documenting them online. This behavior became a matter of concern when he eventually adopted a real dog. The dog was a German Shepherd puppy named Carl. Given that Matt had publicly documented, in considerable detail, activity involving plush toys that closely resembled German Shepherds, it was reasonable to fear what he might do to Carl. To this day, there is no evidence that Matt has been mistreating him, especially in that kind of way. Maybe he only likes plushies and therefore not try anything with an actual doll. Carl's introduction wasn't the main thing that damaged Matt's social reputation, to those who didn't know him. In fact, the Degenerate got noticed on X for something that had nothing to do with plushies or fetishes or any of the content that had defined his online presence for years. It started with George Floyd. In the immediate aftermath of Floyd's death in May 2020 and the nationwide protests that followed, Matt posted his opinions on Twitter. They weren't particularly bad because he addressed the looting that had occurred during this time. He called the perpetrators anarchists and demanded that the government send in the army. Having watched another night of chaos in my city unfold, it's clear that this is no longer protest for the murder of George Floyd or a rally for equality. It's an enormous group of anarchist criminal thugs destroying and looting the city. Please send in the army at real Donald Trump. This was a position that was held by a substantial portion of the general public. The effects of his Floyd tweets were modest compared to what came next. A private WhatsApp conversation between Matt and his friend was leaked by that person and distributed publicly. The conversation revealed something Matt had apparently revealed in confidence. He found the military uniforms worn by German officers during the Second World War attractive. Matt's friend had responded by calling his love for Nazi uniforms a slippery slope, to which Matt responded aggressively, "It just pisses me off. Like, just because I find a particular article of clothing to be attractive, people think I'm going to join some alt-right white nationalist group and start voting Republican?" Matt was aware this was a charged admission and was defensive about it, and then, in the same conversation, in the same defensive register, he made a comment about the Black Lives Matter movement. He said that because everyone around him was supporting it, he felt compelled to oppose it, like a child who does exactly what they're told not to do. And Matt also claimed that he wanted to go Nazi. The exact wording he chose to express this impulse was so racially inflammatory that when the screenshots spread, there was essentially no interpretation available to save him. Matt attempted damage control. He posted clarifications and tried to contextualize. Sadly, the damage was already done. There's no way you can gain credibility after talking about Nazi uniform fetish and racism in a confidential conversation. It's even worse when you consider how much he downplayed the BLM movement with his tweets, like this one for instance, where he gave a basic introduction of himself and threw in the hashtag below. Matt drew the wrath of many people, with some calling him a racist cop lover. The harassment continued even long after the Black Lives Matter case. People on Twitter insulted Matt for his love of kids' cartoons. Yeah, it's kind of up. You have the hots for kids show characters. You need to get therapy at the minimum. What you tweeted was so up. Honestly, what the what's wrong with you? And he always responded by blocking people. It got so bad that by his own apparent judgment, it was no longer worth enduring. He deleted his Twitter account. Even though he had left the Bird app, Matt's online presence was still tracked down by members of the Kiwi Farms, who had been archiving his activities for years. After deleting Twitter, Matt didn't disappear entirely. Instead, he moved to Blue Sky, the newer and significantly smaller social platform, and resumed posting. Around 2021, he joined the ABDL community, which is short for Adult Baby Diaper Lover, a community of grown-ups who love wearing diapers. In the community, Matt claimed that he had really found a place with his people. "I've made tons of great friends and really found my place in the baby fur ABDL community," and he continues to flash pictures of his diapers. On the topic of his interpersonal relations, Matt has evolved into a much grander space. For the most part, Twilight Sparkle, who had been the beginning of his infamy, doesn't really get much attention as before. She remains his wife, but it's clear from his collection of dog plushies that he has other priorities now. He once introduced a boyfriend to the scene. In one of his posts on social media, Matt shared a photo of a man wearing a fursuit. This person, he claimed, is a friend of 4 years, who's also a plush hopile. They had been apart for months, and Matt was ready to give their relationship a shot since his wife, Twilight Sparkle, approved. "In addition to a wife, I now have a boyfriend. We've missed each other ever since, and wifey approves, so we're gonna give being boyfriends a try." Matt and his boyfriend went through the same ups and downs as any other relationship. They had breakups and makeups. It's a continuous cycle, but at least it revealed that Matt had evolved to the point of maintaining interpersonal relationships with humans, even though plush hopile connection was demented from the jump. All in all, Matt definitely suffers from a form of mental problem. Some have thought it to be schizophrenia since he believed that Twilight Sparkle spoke to him and came out of her plushy form all the time. Also, his love for cartoon characters, particularly Rocky, could be a form of projection, seeing that Rocky is canonically 6 years old, and Matt has a strong attachment to it. Whatever the case may be, it's clear that Matt Beard, or Jin1515, needs strong mental evaluation, and until he gets that help, he'll continue to be a menace to society.